Hi, it's Dennis Daly. When Larry King first came from Miami to Washington to take over the overnight talk slot on the old Mutual Broadcasting System, I worked with him for the better part of a year. Then, of course, he went on to become an international celebrity. I went to the Ag Department at United Press International and did a lot of other things. On the 10th anniversary of his coming to Washington to talk about his new book, I sat down and talked to him. We talked first about those old days when hardly anybody knew who he was.
You and I came to Mutual at about the same time in '78, although you've done better. That was a time when...
Talent will out, Dennis.
Thank you. That was a time when there were about 30 affiliates, and I remember, had it not been for somebody who remembered that I wasn't in the union one night when you were not there, they suggested I do the show, which would have been a thrill to tell people now, but it didn't happen. When you came to Washington, I remember that a lot of the pool of guests that you were able to get for the show, even though it was a network show, but it did not have certainly the reputation it does now, were people from Capitol Hill and people from Washington. Was it tough to get guests then?
Oh, yeah. Well, especially tough by the fact that we didn't have an affiliate in Washington. So here we were, a midnight to 5:30 a.m. national radio program, aired on 28 stations. The largest station was Cleveland, and then it was Miami, Seattle, and then pretty low stations. And we're doing this show at midnight in this cavernous crystal city by the airport, and no one in the city of Washington can hear it. And we're telling people, please come to our show. However, we got very lucky very early. We started to pick up stations right away. We started to get, as they say in the trade, ink. People wrote about us. Within a few months, we picked up WTOP, which is a 50,000-watt all-new CBS affiliate in Washington. And then it snowballed. But, that first few months, you rely on friendship and asking. And so a lot of people rolled coins with us, and we had booked authors and sports people and people I'd known from 20 years of doing interviews in Miami. So that helped a lot.
The book you've just written, because there is that constant flow of PR people who call up shows such as yours and say, hey, I've got this guy who just wrote this book. You really want him as a guest. Did that help you in putting the book together? I mean, certainly you have talked to more authors than just about anybody.
What I did with this book was do the best I could to turn out a book that's lively and entertaining and fun to read. It wasn't my idea. I was having lunch with Sterling Lord, who's a very well-known agent in New York. He looks like his name. Close your eyes, Sterling Lord, you're right. And I was telling him stories. It was just swapping stories. And I told him about Nixon and Humphrey and baseball stories, and he says, there's a really good book in this, a book of anecdotes, a David Niven-ish kind of book, a book where you just sit and remember. And I said, I don't have the discipline to do that. I have great respect for writers. And even though I do a column once a week, I couldn't sit down. And he said, well, I'll get you a writer. He got Peter Ochogrosso, terrific. And Peter came and spent 3 weeks in my apartment. And I just remembered things. We'd have lunch together, dinner together, we'd take rides together. It was the summer of '87. I was between a heart attack and heart surgery. And I just then when they finished and put it all together, they knew that if I wanted a tour, I'm going to get on shows, that this would get a lot of attention, because I would probably be a good guest and could be funny or serious and go any way the host wants to go. I could talk briefly or expand, and built a well-known name enough that you have what you call a celebrity book. And this is I think Publishers Weekly said it's chow for celebrity hounds. And I guess that's true. I think it's a quick, easy, fun read, but I didn't have in mind what it would be like to promote. Mm-hmm. That wasn't a conscious thought.
There's a real temptation on my point to say that it's scary to be put in a position of interviewing a person who is the, if I may say, consummate interviewer in many people's minds, to have you on the other side of the microphone.
Yeah, I understand. When I remember the first time I interviewed Arthur Godfrey. Arthur Godfrey was a personal hero of mine. I was a kid, and I worshipped Arthur Godfrey. Now, he was not per se an interviewer, but he was a major, major personality and had a major effect in my life, and he taught me lots of things. And so what I did was do this is the very thing you just did, is go to that. I was in awe and said I was in awe and sort of responded and had him respond to that, which was very good thing to do, because anybody who has that feeling, I don't walk around feeling like I'm a legend. Mm-hmm. First of all, it makes you feel old. I don't feel old. So you like to see that people ape you and that you've made some mark, and you like to have people tell you that how do you interview an interviewer? Mm-hmm. And the simplest thing is to just ask the best questions you think you can ask, because any interview causes the interviewee to think about things he or she didn't think about.
You mentioned Arthur Godfrey as a hero, a role model. I remember in Indiana as a child in the 50s listening to KDKA in Pittsburgh, and there was a man and wife team, Ed and Wendy King, who did a talk show for 2 hours in which you did not hear the callers. It was the darndest thing in the world.
They repeated what the callers
They repeated what the call, and you felt like you heard them after a while. That, I think, the experience of listening to them convinced me that I no longer wanted to be a map maker, a cartographer, which was my childhood dream, that I wanted to be in radio. Who else did you listen to? Who put the bug in your ear?
Godfrey was a tremendous influence, Red Barber, but I tell you, Dennis, I can think of nothing else I ever wanted to be but on the radio. And then when television came on television, I wanted to communicate. I didn't know I wanted to be an interviewer. I thought I'd be a sportscaster. But when the radio was on, I listened. I wondered. In fact, I would stare at the radio. My brother was 4 years younger than me, so let's say I'm 10, he's 6. And I would say, are they standing up or sitting down? Are they wearing ties or not? How do they look? How do you think they look? I would be fascinated in listening to drama and news and sports. I wanted to do what they were doing. When I got out of high school, I didn't go to college. I got a job at 1440 Broadway in an Associated Merchandising Corporation. So I was in the same building as WOR, the station that now carries us. I worked in that building. I would get on the elevator and go up to WOR's floor and fantasize that I worked at WOR. And I would ride down the elevator. The other day I was up at WOR, and I still get that same little bump every time I go in that building. Holy cow, I'm on WOR. And I lived out of fantasy. But my heroes became the Godfreys and the Barbers, and I later learned from them. And talking to Godfrey and Red and others, I got into it young enough to meet my heroes. And the thing I learned from them, there's one basic thing I'll tell you. It could be used by anybody probably in any business, but it certainly applies in this one. Godfrey said it best. The only secret in this business is there's no secret. Be yourself. That's the only thing to do. If you are yourself and yourself is good, you will be good and accepted. If you are yourself and yourself is bad, you will not be accepted. But never be anyone else. If you're Dan Rather, don't be Walter Cronkite. If you're Saul Jones, don't be Larry King. If I'm Larry King, don't be Arthur Godfrey. Be Larry King. And don't ever be afraid to be Larry King. And once you're not afraid, and I lost that my first day on the air. I lost fear the first day I was on the air. I have never, ever been afraid of a camera or a microphone. Not ever, because I bring me to it.
Have you ever been afraid of a guest?
Never been afraid of a guest. In awe of some. First time I interviewed Sinatra, yeah. You know, it's a little bit awe around just the fact that he didn't do interviews and he had done it on a favor for Jackie Gleason. And, but no, I know that, that old putting the pants leg on one leg at a time. But I know that I'm there in the role and I'm in control. See, you're always in control. When you're the host, you're in control. The guest is never in control. You could have the President of the United States, you could have...
But it's your show.
It's your show.
You go to the White House, it's his show.
That's correct. No, if it's your show, it's your show.
Okay.
If you're in the White House, but it's the Larry King show...
It's still your show.
It's still your show. If Christ comes back... And Christ says, hold on. I said, wait a minute. Hold it, Jesus. We got a commercial. We'll be back. It's still my show. Now, he may have a power to eliminate that.
The first real major talent I guess I worked with was Tennessee Ernie Ford. I was working with him for the agriculture department. He was doing some radio spots. And I remember this great timidity I had. I was in the booth, and I turned to his manager, and I said, he doesn't sound like I want him to. And the manager said, you're in charge. And I remember trying to get the words out of my mouth saying, Mr. Ford, you don't sound like Tennessee Ernie Ford. That was difficult, but then I realized that the position I was in, I had to do that. But in dealing with talented people that you're in awe of, it's difficult at first.
Well, if you want to be broadcasting, you got to stop being in awe. You never are in awe. You do the best. And you also trust your instincts. I trust my broadcast instincts. I trust them. Mm-hmm. And in the main, I've been right. I mean, I've had management tell me that. I've never been called in by management on something I did on the air. Never. I've had lucky management. I've never said I never had anyone call me and say, why didn't you ask this? Well, that was terrible yesterday.
Or you left the lights on when you left. Nothing.
Yeah, that kind of. Yeah. But what I trusted myself, and so I was on WNBC Radio New York the other day, and the host said to me, well, does no situation throw you? I said, no, I've seen everything. There's nothing new. Supposing I gave you something new. I said, well, what do you got in mind? He says, okay, let's say, and he looked at the clock, and it was 6:29. This was a show that was on from 6 to 7. He said, okay, supposing someone came into this room right now and said, Larry, Tom Brokaw's had a fainting spell. There's nobody else in the building. Here's the script. You're the host of the nightly news. It's on in 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, go.
Part 2 of the interview is also here on YouTube.